Well, thank you for sticking with us here on Good Morning Uganda. My name is Olive Monica Najuma, and this is the agenda segment where we delve into topics of national importance. And as Ugandans, this is the segment where we normally have opinion leaders, policy makers to delve deeper into some of the issues that interest or sometimes aggrieve Ugandans. So join me, let's have a conversation that is of utmost importance to us today. Now, I will be speaking to a gentleman that is a voice for workers in Uganda, and our topic of conversation today is organization of trade unions and workers' welfare. And yeah, we get into it because the National Organization of Trade Unions, Notu, plays a very pivotal role in advocating for workers' rights and improving the conditions of workers in Uganda. So that's the conversation we'll be getting into: workers' welfare, why it is important, and why it is also very beneficial for you to be part of this organization or being part of trade unions. And I will be speaking to a gentleman. I'll let him introduce himself. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Monica. Mauku Richard Moses is my name. I am the General Secretary of Uganda Hotels, Food, Tourism, Supermarkets and Allied Workers Union, but also the Treasurer General of the National Organization of Trade Unions, Notu. I wish to take this opportunity to thank Ugandans, especially the workers, and extend my sincere gratitude for the work that you do to develop our economy. I wish you the very best, and also wish you a happy new year.
Okay. Yes, speaking of a happy new year, I've not seen you since the year began.
Sure.
So happy new year to you.
Thank you. Happy new year to you too.
All right. Now, let's get into the conversation. First of all, for a viewer that has never been a part of any conversation regarding Notu and its importance, how has Notu been instrumental in advancing workers' rights and welfare in Uganda?
Thank you. I think the best way to approach this is to first and foremost describe what trade unions are, what they mean, and what they do, and what their function is.
Yes.
Trade unions were formed way back in 1883, between 1883 and 1887. And it was a struggle, a long struggle between those that were employing others and governments. And that time we did not basically have employer-employee relationship. Those in employment were referred to as slaves and or servants. And the people that we see today as employers were masters, lords, merchants, and so that relationship was more to do with slave, servant, and master. So during that time when economic development started to evolve, many people were getting into work, and work which was not regulated, work which was not paid. For that purpose, some few people working in one of the factories in one of the places called Torpedo in Europe chose to form themselves into a united front. And that is how trade unions started. It was a struggle until 1919, when governments, employers, and workers, after fighting for a long time, agreed to form themselves into an organization that regulates labor and employment under the United Nations. And that organization is called ILO, or International Labour Organization.
Okay.
That is headquartered in Switzerland, Geneva. And since 1919, the three partners, the tripartite partners, governments, employers, organizations, and workers' organizations, meet annually in the International Labour Conference to regulate labor and employment issues in the whole world. So the definition or prescription of a trade union is that organization which is representative, it is continuous, independent, democratic, formed, managed, and run and financed by workers themselves for the purpose and or function of advancing, advocating, promoting, protecting, and defending the workers' social and economic interests. And that is all done through collective bargaining and basing on both local and international labor legal frameworks.
Yes.
That is the function of a trade union.
Okay. All right. Now, Mr. Mawere, when we look at the function of the trade union, one also can't help but think about some of the challenges that workers in the country face. In your own perspective, as someone that works with workers with trade unions, what would you say are some of the primary challenges that Ugandan workers are facing, and how is Notu helping them resolve those?
First and foremost, workers are the weakest group in employment. In employment, there are those three people that exist or coexist 24/7. In every workplace, there is government, there is an employer, and there is a worker. Among the three parties, the weakest group is the workers. Remember that all these three parties have interests in every workplace. An employer will have an interest, for example, if it's a business entity, the employer will have the interest of making profit. The worker will have the interest of earning a living. And the government will also have the interest of picking tax from every sale. So all of us compete for money within a work organization. Government needs money there through taxation. The employer needs money as a profit, and the worker needs money as salary and all allowances. So who has the right to access to that money? The government has rights using the law. If government wants to get tax, it is by law. By 15th, you must have filed returns. Pay as you earn and all other taxes.
Yes.
By 15th of the preceding months. When the employer wants to access that money, whatever it is, he will ask the accountant, do a check. What happens to the worker if he also wants to access that money? It's begging. So under the circumstances, you find that it is the worker among the three stakeholders or tripartite partners who is on the begging side. The government commands, the other one commands, the worker is supposed to beg. So under the circumstances, the International Labour Organization or governments under the international labor standards provide that workers shall be represented by this organization that is their own, that can speak for them, so that they can also sit on the round table with the employers through representation to access those facilities that are supposed to be shared by the three persons that constitute a workplace. So under the circumstances, we have trade unions in all organizations, in all countries that are member states to International Labour Organization. And these trade unions function, like I said, is to advance, advocate, promote, protect, and defend the workers' interests in the work organization through collective bargaining. So the unions are meant to conduct collective bargaining, to negotiate the terms and conditions of employment for the workers that they represent. And that is also by law. Both the international standards provide for the rights to freedom of association under Convention 87 and also Convention 98 that gives liberty and freedom for workers to negotiate and determine their terms and conditions of employment. Likewise, the National Constitution under Articles 29 and 40, they also provide for the liberties of workers to freedom of association and also the freedom to negotiate their terms and conditions of employment. So Notu, as the umbrella organization that represents workers, is basically to supervise the functionality of trade unions in Uganda to ensure that this function is being undertaken in accordance to the provisions of the different forms or pieces of law.
Okay.
And the workers that follow under unions have their terms far better than those that do not, in most cases. So it is important and advisable that all workers get into unions or within their sectors so that they can together fight for their interests.
Okay. Mr. Ore, you have, I like that actually, the ending where you say that the workers that are in unions have better terms vis-a-vis their mates that are not in unions. Please expound on that.
The terms under or within organizations that recognize and work with trade unions, the terms change periodically using the collective bargaining agreements that are done and reviewed after every period. If the period of the agreement is 2 years, after every 2 years, you sit again and review the terms and conditions under which you employ these people. So that is why it is important that all workers get organized so that we can have that common voice to go and sit in the boardroom with the directors of a given company so we can together agree on how we shall be governed under the principle of social dialogue in ILO, which is one of the pillars of decent work.
Okay. Please join the conversation. We are speaking matters workers' welfare, and I am speaking to Mr. Mawere, who is Mr. Mauku, who is from an organization from the organization of trade unions in Uganda. So come join us, and you can ask him some questions if you have any on WhatsApp number 0709602592. Now, Mr. Mauku, we understand that there is the high cost of living today, and workers are feeling the brunt of this. So looking at the high cost of living and economic pressures that workers are facing, because there is one thing that we must agree on, that the cost of living will rise, but in most cases, the salaries, the benefits will stay the same no matter what. I mean, some people's salaries never changed since COVID-19, but we know that things changed. The war in Ukraine contributed to the change in the prices of certain commodities that we buy for food. So looking at all that, how is Notu helping workers? Are there any specific initiatives aimed at cushioning these impacts on the workers?
First and foremost, when it comes to issues of balancing between the needs of workers and the needs of the employers. Like I said, the employer is having an upper hand in decision making. The employee doesn't have. From the initial stages of when and how you get into employment, during the interviews, they will always ask you, how much can we pay you? And given the very high problem of unemployment,
yes,
many workers tell these employers that you can pay me anything.
And that's where the problem starts. It
starts from there. Uganda operates without a minimum wage. So the employers have it when they ask for, when they do an advert for one position or two, 500 people run
2,000
for that one position. So the employer feels so big when he's having a chain of people who are struggling for this one job. So if they ask you under the circumstances, you say, pay me anything. It's until when you get this job, do it for a month or two, that you begin to realize
that you shot yourself in the foot.
Exactly. So if you are not in the union, the employer will tell you that I negotiated with you, I agreed with you that I will pay you this money. And you accepted, and you signed a contract to that effect. If you are privileged to get into an employment where they issue contracts. Many of them, especially in the private sector, do not even issue contracts. They tell you, go and start work. You work for 30 days, you don't know how much you'll earn, you don't know what your terms are, but you're working. So the situation is that fragile that high unemployment versus the authority by the employee, the employer. You start work when you even don't know your terms, if you have not been given a contract. And even when you have been given a contract, these contracts are short. It is a one-page contract. But when we negotiate a collective bargaining agreement, it's 40 pages or 50. You get. So the most important thing is governments knew that an employer is striving to make more profit. The employee is also striving to, but the employee is a disadvantaged person in employment who needs to be represented by this organization that is not paid by your employer, but it is authoritatively the organization registered to represent your interests.
Yes.
So it begins from workers appreciating and comprehending that the only leverage they have, or we have as employees, is to get organized. One scholar said that if you want to be recognized, you must be organized. So when we remain disorganized, the employer will decide without your participation. And yet the laws provide that you are supposed to negotiate your terms and conditions of employment through your representative workers organization, which is not the case for most of the employees in Uganda. So when you look at the level of the economic growth, the level at which inflation grows, and somebody has been given a salary and you work 10 years with the same salary, everything else is changing, but your salary is static.
You're working 10 years, same salary,
yes,
and you do not even have, for instance, we have pension funds like NSSF, but there are many organizations that are not remitting this. So after 10, 20 years of working, probably for some reason or another, there is early retirement and you do not have pension.
We have always said that there is a very serious mismatch in Uganda when it comes to industrialization and labor administration. The two are not matching. We have so many industries cropping up, mushrooming every other day. Labor administration has remained a department within the Ministry of Gender. And this is a function that is meant to be administered by the ministry responsible for labor. All countries everywhere in the world, they have a separate ministry that deals with employment and labor issues. In Uganda, it is merged with many other functions: gender, labor, social development, women, youth, old people, people with disability, culture, all into the same thing, which is meant to be for specifically employment and labor. So there is little attention given by government to issues of labor and employment.
So are you saying that mixing up labor issues in one
ministry, it undermines
ministry
the function of employment and labor because the attention is not enough. We need inspectors. We have over 500, no, almost 1 million companies that are supposed to be inspected by the Ministry of Labor. But the Ministry of Labor does not even have 100 inspectors. So when will the 100 people inspect 1 million companies every year?
And they are mushrooming companies
when we have we have millions and millions of workers. We have labor officers that are less than 200. We have a labor court, the industrial court, one court sitting in Kampala to administer for the whole country. So when does this one court attend to cases of the 2 million Ugandans who have complaints?
Who are in the workforce.
And it only sits in Kampala. How do you expect this one employee who is employed in Mugahinga, was in Mugahinga 2 days ago, those ends of Mugahinga, Bwindi, we have workers there.
We have workers in Adjumani.
At the border, Adjumani, Swam, Karamoja.
Yes.
When do they come to file cases and attend to their cases in Kampala? So the labor function is one of the big problems that we have. It has been put together with very many other functions within the ministry responsible for labor. So we have a lot of issues, and we have been calling on government, one, to at least re-centralize the labor function. You will also find that we have labor officers that are not workers of the Ministry of Labor. They are recruited by a different ministry, local government, which has no expertise to deal with labor issues. And many of these districts don't find it a priority. They actually have no labor officers in many of the districts today. They have not recruited labor officers. Those that have labor officers, there is one position in the ministry, I mean in local government for a labor officer. Where does he go if he grows by rank? He changes and that position will remain vacant. So we have so many issues relating to labor administration that also hinge to the problems of the workers. The problems are many. The people that are supposed to be referees in law are not there. Those that are there are too few to attend to all the workers in this country. So the only privilege is at least get organized into one of the unions within your sector, so that this union can try to engage with your employer to ensure that your terms and conditions, including salary, is negotiated periodically. That is what I can submit.
Okay. Well, interesting conversation. Now, I am speaking to the General Secretary of Uganda, of the National Organization of Trade Unions, that is Mr. Moses Mauku, and we are looking at the welfare of workers in Uganda. Now, you can join the conversation on WhatsApp number 0709-602592. The same number is displayed on your screen. Now, Mr. Mauku, looking at, you have really painted a grave picture, and it concerns me. Most of the workers are people that are educated. I would say they know their rights, but probably that is an assumption. Why is it that many are not in unions? It feels like the whole conversation of unionizing, be part of a union, is foreign to many workers. I have friends in the corporate sector, and I don't think I know any of them that is part of a union. So it takes me back. Why is it that unionizing is not something many workers are having a conversation about?
Well, we have a duty as trade union organizations to speak about unions.
Yes.
But in tertiary institutions, some of them have it as a course unit. Others bring it about as a topic as industrial relations. Trade unions are all over the world, and they are the organizations that represent employees. But some of these people, some of you in the corporate women and men, think that you are educated enough and you can fend for yourselves, which is sometimes not the case.
Are you throwing it back at us? Why do I feel
Both
like...
of us.
Okay.
We come here and provide this information.
Okay.
But until somebody has gotten a personal problem, that is the time he will remember to look for a union. Even in organizations where the unions are recognized, by virtue of the fact that there is freedom of association. So there is freedom to join and also freedom not to join. We have organizations where we have the union representing, but some employees choose not to become. And they ride on the others who have become. Because when you negotiate the terms, in most cases
everyone
it will cut
is
across.
favored. Yes.
You get. It is only the labor union's check of regulations that helps to catch all these people together within the bargaining unit. Otherwise, it is a problem of ignorance by the employees about their... You may claim to know your rights, but we have 190 conventions. If I asked those corporate people, how many of these conventions do they know? They don't know many of them, if not all of them. We have 8 labor laws in Uganda. And you may not know these 8 labor laws, what is entailed in each of these laws. But those are the laws that provide for your relationship with your employer. As and to whether you are realizing what these laws provide or not, you don't know. But for us, we take time, we are part and parcel of the process to even develop these laws. So we understand them best. And we are placed in the best way to represent those who are working for other people. So I just want to take this call once again on all Ugandans to interest them in being representation. Representation is natural. We elect leadership from LOC1, LOC2, LOC3, LOC4, which is mayor, MPs, LOC5 up to president, for purposes of representation. Because if somebody wants to speak to Uganda, they will not come and consult everybody. They will consult the leadership. So if somebody wants to talk with workers, they look for Notu.
Yes.
They look for the union.
Yes.
That is why all government agencies where workers are meant to be representative, either on the boards, they choose from among the organized workers. Members of parliament representing workers are selected from among the organized workers in the unions, whether members of the board on NSSF and all other government boards. They choose from among. You can be a professor, you will never represent workers within the government. It is those ones who may not have been very highly educated who represent you. You can talk everything, but government will sit with the unions to determine on matters to do with employment. So it is incumbent upon ourselves to realize that we need that representation. Okay. And if you want to be part, then belong. That's what I can say.
Okay, if you want to be a part, then belong. Don't wait for when stuff hits the fan and then you remember, oh, I need representation. It's easier for you when you are already represented. Now, Mr. Mauka, I have John Opendi has a question for you, and he says, my question to Mr. Mauko is, what happens to employees who deliberately refuse their employees to join unions, and how can you help unlock this? Also, he asked that you share your personal number for easy consultations. But let's go with the question. Employers who deliberately refuse their workers from joining unions. I know that there has always been a pushback by some employers when it comes to unionizing since time immemorial. So as far as Notu is concerned, how do you unlock this?
First is to tell you that there are laws. We have the Labor Unions Act. And we also have the provisions in the National Constitution. The National Constitution provides for the liberty and freedom for workers to join or form unions of their choice. And the labor laws, the Labor Unions Act, also provide under Section 23(1)(d) that employers shall be bound to recognize trade unions to which the trade unions have members. And that is, recognition is for purposes of collective bargaining. When an employer recognizes the union, the sole purpose for that recognition is to collectively negotiate the terms and conditions of employment for the workers. But it is a reality that in Uganda we do not have a definite schedule in the law, or we don't have an agreed form or format by which employers do recognize. So recognition is also subject to discussion. So we negotiate with employers to secure recognition, which is the first form of agreement that we enter into with employers, and that agreement sets out the procedures and the modalities under which the union shall operate with that particular organization. The problem has been somehow historical, because unions came in as a fight. One of the things trade unions did was actually to fight slavery, because all workers were at one time slaves and all servants. So that notion still lingers in the employer's mind, that they should always suppress the people they work with. under the circumstances, we applied the law to enforce recognition and therefore have the workers organized into the unions using the law. There are unions that I would say are weak and they cannot push. But these laws also provide that if the employer does not file a dispute with the registrar of labor unions, who can thereafter issue an order on the employer to recognize. And if it doesn't work out, still you can go to industrial court and you'll get this person compelled to apply the law. But unions need to be received in good faith because it is a matter of negotiation. So the fights sometimes, when you use a lot of force, it takes some time to balance and agree, because at one point in time you must sit on a round table and discuss these matters. So I only want to inform John Opendi that it is just a matter of negotiation, goodwill, technique to ensure that you get the employer to understand you. But where he doesn't, apply the law.
Okay.
There are many people that, there are many employers who have recognized. There are also many who have not recognized. But unions are registered by sector. That is why we are referred to as trade unions. So for each trade or sector, different unions.
So you'll find the nurses, you'll find the doctors, you'll find the journalists.
Exactly. You
in
find
a
the
different
drivers,
union.
you find hotels, food, tourism, supermarket. Those are different.
As well, right?
The market workers have a different union. Plantation workers, all different sectors, different unions.
Actually, factory workers as well.
Industries.
Now, John also asks, which category of employees are exempted from joining unions?
All persons employed and salaried have the freedom and liberty by constitution to join
a union.
The union.
Okay.
However, the Industrial Relations Charter, Tripartite Industrial Relations Charter, spells out that there are certain people who directly represent the interests of the employer, who may not necessarily have to become members of the union because the union sits with them to negotiate. For example, the managers who have the right to hire and fire.
Like HR managers? The
HR manager, the managing director, and probably the general manager.
Basically the executive.
The top executive of an organization. They represent the interests of the employer, so they may not necessarily become members of the union.
But you see, sometimes I could be like where I am right now, I join a union for journalists. And at some point, I'm at the helm of a media company. Does that negate the fact that I'm still a journalist in as much as now I'm part of the executive?
You can operate as a passive member, but you cannot take leadership in the union because you initiate complaints or you handle complaints by the workers.
Okay.
So if you are a leader of the worker, you cannot sit in two chairs at the same time to do contrary function.
There will be conflict of interest.
Definitely. So if you are that top person in the company, if you choose to exercise your duty and right as a worker, then you become a passive member that does not become a leader on the other side.
Okay. Well, and Mark says thanks to the gentleman. Uganda, the government has failed to balance life of Ugandans' welfare. I think it means workers' welfare. And my question to our brother is, where is the salary guidance for all Ugandans? I'm trying to paraphrase, but I think that's what he means. His question is on salary, because you did also mention that you negotiate the terms and conditions.
Including salaries.
Including salaries. So please.
You know, one thing is true, as National Organization of Trade Unions and all the affiliate unions within Uganda, we are striving to establish a minimum wage, especially for the workers who we represent in the general. The workers need to have a minimum wage so that we have a starting point.
Yes.
We need a minimum wage which recognizes that this person eats, this person walks or transports him herself.
And their rent is increased.
Yes. The economy keeps changing.
Yes.
We receive economic shocks, all of us, both government employers and workers.
True.
But we are like neglecting the work on the other side to fend for him or herself. So what we are calling on government to do is, one, to establish a minimum wage. It is only for a quack employer who thinks that a minimum wage is bad. You know, we are putting workers to a very big risk. To these Chinese who come here, mint money and take it outside. Take it back to China. And the Chinese employing 500 workers, none of these people is subscribing to NSSF. So as a government, we are not benefiting much from this person. These people are paid a wage that cannot make them even contribute to or pay as you earn, because the pay is too low that it does not even mark up to the threshold against which government can charge pay as you earn. I don't know why government has not taken interest to appreciate and comprehend that some of these so-called investors are actually useless to the economy. The profit they make, they take it back. The people that they are employing here are not contributing to the GDP.
So basically they remain in poverty, yet the biggest reason for investment
several times
is to create jobs.
Several times the president has said he wants to have many people join the money economy, the cash economy.
Yes.
We are not going to realize that dream by the president if we don't have a minimum wage that makes this person, each person in employment, be able to contribute to government. Each person in employment be able to contribute to social security. You are all aware how much money we have in social security and how it is helping this economy to develop.
Yes.
So the more people we get into that basket of contributing to the social security system, the more the country will even grow faster. So it is a call that we are making as trade unions that government should establish a minimum wage. Government should consider discussions and involvement of workers at all. Government should also improve on the labor administration by making the Ministry of Labor an independent ministry, and also re-centralize the function of labor from local government to the mother ministry.
Okay. So
that a number of things can be done in such a way that the workers' welfare can improve in this country. As we speak, it is quite wanting.
Okay. And now I have another concern coming through, and this one says, good morning, host, and the gentleman. He says, on sensitizing the people, you may not he says, I want to truly inform you that I'm a safety manager, but my team of employees are really handled badly, whereby they are even charged money when there is no wrong on their side, and they are charged about 200,000 that they delay to submit their job card, yet they were not given to them to be filled. It's wrong and it is theft. And he continues to say, what guidance are you giving to guide these workers? Give me the phone number, your phone number. We can find such individuals who are milking workers. And he says, especially finance teams mistreating other employees on projects. The last question he asked is, joining a trade union, is it free of charge? And we have many comments coming through, but time is of the essence. So your response to that will be the closure of our conversation.
Well, all I can say is joining trade unions is free, but trade unions are membership organizations towards which we pay contributions monthly. And by definition, unions are run, managed, and financed by workers themselves. So we pay a monthly subscription to our unions.
Yes.
So it may be free to join, but maintenance of your membership by law requires you to subscribe in accordance with the Employment Act. And the other concern was these specific employers who are cheating workers, I wouldn't wish to put my number because I'll be overwhelmed.
Yeah, because
Maybe
there are
I
many
can
concerns and different people are asking for a contact, probably not yours, but one for the organization where they can call and get guidance.
Let me get the number for...
Well,
But what I can say is that whether unionized or not unionized, the unions have liberty. We find liberty in the Employment Act Section 66 to represent anybody who is in employment. So these people can look for us. Our offices are in Namugongo,
yes,
Chaliwajara. The offices for the union which I pretend over is in Wakariga.
yes.
But you can always never fail to find these locations. As I look for the number, I don't know whether the time will allow. I have to check on my phone. I don't cram numbers in the head. It is important that you look out for either Notu or HTS-UNION or the union within your jurisdiction. Come and report this employer. We shall come definitely as Notu as or the respective union. We shall send them to come and rescue the situation.
Okay.
That's what I can say.
Well, time has unfortunately run out for us, but we've been having a conversation on workers' welfare with Mr. Moses Mauku, who is the General Secretary at the National Organization of Trade Unions. Now, those of you that had concerns and wanted his number, you can look out for the website of Notu, and you'll get the contact information that you may need, and also have the questions that you have asked, and some of them that have not been able to repeat here for them to be answered. Good Morning Uganda does continue as we have sports updates with Ruben Mpima Chibirango. Thank you so much, Mr. Malco.
You're most welcome, Monica.
Well, stick around. The show continues.